This is the 24-inch open moss stitch cardigan now, and I'll blow that up so you can see better. And I've cast on using 325mm needles, cast on 66 stitches and knit 12 rows in twisted rib. That's what I've knit, twisted rib. If you want to do twisted rib and you don't know how to do it, you just knit into the back of every knit stitch on every row. And then I changed to 4mm needles, and then I knit 2 rows in stocking stitch, and then started the pattern with knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, and then purled 1 row, and then knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. And I'm on to starting a row with purl 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2. I'll knit, purl 2, knit 2 to the end of the row. And that's 1 row of knit 2, purl 2, and then the next row is just purl all the way across. It's a very simple pattern. There's 4 rows to the pattern, but the two of each of the rows are more or less the same. Just you start with a different stitch, and either start with knit 2 or purl 2. So that row is just purl all the way across, and I will be knitting till this gets to the size I'm doing. I'm knitting to 9.5 inches, but anyone that wanted to follow it can knit at whatever size you want. Maybe it's 10 inches, 10.5 inches, 11 inches, depending on the height of the child. But the one I'm doing for is 9.5 inches, and I'll come back when I get to the armholes. That's the back knitted up to 9.5 inches, and now I'm doing the raglans, and I've cast off 3 stitches at the start of 2 rows, the knit row and the purl row, and then the next row I knitted 3, and then followed the pattern to the last 3 stitches and knitted 3, and on the next row I knit 2, purled all the way across, and then knit 2 on the other end. And then on the next row I started the shaping, which would be the 5th row, and I knit 2, knit 1, slip 1, pass the slip stitch over, and then pattern to the last 4 stitches, knit 2 together and knit 2, and then the purl row is knit 2, and then purl to the last 2 stitches, knit 2. And then after the first decreasing, the next 4th row I decreased again, and now I'm doing it on alternate rows. And like it says, just a simple low it up, simple knit 2, slip 1, knit 1, pass that slip stitch over, and then just work in the pattern across the row while I'm starting with a purl stitch here. Then purl 2, knit 2, and now I meet you at the end of that row, and now I'm at the last 4 stitches. I'm going to knit 2 together, knit 2, and then the purl row is just knit the first 2 stitches, purl all the way across to the last 2 stitches, my face like that, The last 2 stitches, knit 2, and that is all there is to the decreasing, and keep decreasing till you have 22 stitches left and put onto a holder. That's the back of the 24-inch open moss stitch button-up cardigan finished, and I've finished all the decreasing and I'm left with 22 stitches which are placed on a holder, and that's all ready for the other pieces just to sew them together when I get those done. So that's that bit done, and I have cast on stitches for the left front. Get all these long ends out the way. I always leave long ends like this for the sewing up afterwards. I don't like joining little bits to it when you can leave a long piece like that to sew all the way up the side. So I've cast on 32 stitches for the side, which is just a little bit less than half of what you have for the back. I think the back had 66, was it? I'll find it. Yes, 66. The back was 66. When you do the front, you do around about just less than half, because you do need that extra little space for the bands. And so I've knitted 12 rows, same as the back, 12 rows of 1 by 1 twisted rib. Then I knit 2 rows, and then I did the pattern, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. And I finished with knit 2, was it? No, I finished with purl 2. So it depends how many stitches you have on. You can end with the same as what you start with, or well, like seeing I started with knit and I've ended with purl, but it doesn't make any difference because the pattern, the next row you'll end up with knit, on the next 2 rows you'll end up with knit, and so on. So that's what I've done for this one, and it's load up a little bit. Next row I'm just knitting 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. Now I have knitted 3, purled 3 there. I'll have to take those stitches back out to there. That's an easy mistake that anyone can make when you're doing this pattern. It's just 1 stitch wrong and the pattern goes all out. So that's knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. And then the next row will be purl all the way across. And then the next row after that will start with purl 2, knit 2. It's the same as what I showed for the back. And I will be back when I get up to the armholes. So this is the first front I've done. And up to the armholes is 9.5 inches. And I cast off 3 stitches at the start of the armhole shaping, and then I knit 1, 2, 3 more rows, and then I come to the 5th row, which is the first decreasing row. So I did it on the 5th row, then knit another 4 rows and decreased again, and then it's every alternate row after that until you get to check my book, 17 stitches, till you have 17 stitches left, and then you cast off 4 stitches at the neck edge, and you decrease at the neck edge on the next 5 rows. That's right, isn't it? 5 rows. Yes. I'm checking my book because, you know, I've got that many things going on and make sure I'm on the right one. And then you just, as you're decreasing there, you decrease on the armhole edge as well. And after you've decreased 5 stitches at the neck, you just keep on decreasing until you have 2 stitches left. And when I got to 2 stitches, I just purled those 2 together. And that's the, which is it? The left front. Yes, that's the left front. And this is the right front I've just started. So it's exactly the same as the left front, just reversing all the shaping. And when I get that finished, I'll be onto the sleeves, and I will be back with the instructions for the sleeves. So now we're onto the sleeve, and I have cast on, I'll blow that up so you can see better. I've cast on 34 stitches and done 12 rows and knit 1 purl, 1 twisted rib, and then I knit 2 stitches, sorry, 2 rows, and then I knit 1 row in pattern, which I started off with knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, and on the 4th row, which will be on the wrong side, I started the increasing. And to do it on the wrong side is better for this pattern because you can work the stitches into the pattern better. Because when you do it on a purl row, all you're doing is purling all the way across, so you just purl the increased stitch. And on the next row, you just work it in whatever stitch it adds to the pattern. And now I'm increasing on every 8th row. That was on the 4th row, and then I'm doing it on every 8th row until I have 48 stitches. And I'll show you how I increase on the wrong side. So I'm going to purl the first stitch, and then you don't go into the next stitch. You pick up that bit of yarn between those 2 stitches, that bit there, and put it onto the needle. And then you just purl that stitch. You might have to lift that stitch with your finger because it's a bit awkward to, sometimes you can get it through okay, but I find it easier just to lift the stitch like that and put the needle through it, and then purl that stitch. And that's 1 stitch you've increased. And then just purl across the row to the last stitch. And I will meet you at the end of that row. Now I'm coming up to the last stitch. And again, you're picking up that bit of yarn between those 2 stitches and just placing it on the needle. And then putting the needle through that stitch, just purl it, and then purl the last stitch. And that's how you increase on a purl row on the wrong side. And you can see on the other side, you just work out where that extra stitch that you've added, and I go back a few stitches and see, well, that row there, those 2 stitches there are going to be purl, so those 2 are knit, so the first 2 stitches are purl. And that's how you work out working in that extra stitch. And as you can see there, it's hardly noticed where that extra stitch is. It just blends in with the knitting. So that is the sleeve, and I'm going to keep increasing till I have 48 stitches, and then keep knitting until it gets to 10.5 inches. My 10.5 inches are 76 rows. And then I will come back and show the shaping for the armholes. Now I have cast off 3 stitches each side of the armhole, and then I decreased, knit 2 rows and then decreased on the next row and the 3 following 4th rows after that. So that's 4 times in all that I've decreased with on 4th rows. And then I'm going to do it on alternate rows now. I have 34 stitches here now, and I'm going to do it until I have 8 stitches left. And it's just knit 2, slip 1, knit 1, pass that slip stitch over, and just keeping up with the pattern is knit 2, purl 2. You just work the decreasing into the pattern as you go along. Now pause that until I get to the end of the row. And I'm going to knit 2 together, the last 4 stitches, knit 2, and then on the purl row we're going to knit the first 2 stitches like we did on the other parts, and then just purl across to the last 2 stitches, and we'll be knitting those 2 stitches. I'm purling the last 2 stitches and then knitting these last 2. And that's how the shaping is. With this pattern being, it goes wider than ordinary stocking stitch, so you have less stitches to get the width you need. So that means when you come to do the sleeves, you have less stitches than when you would have if you were knitting stocking stitch. So you have to do more rows with every 4th row for the decreasing. That's why we have four times there. But this is the finished one. You have 8 stitches there, and the garter stitch up the raglan. And then after I finish that, we'll be doing the neck and then sew it up and then put the bands on. That's all the pieces here now, so I'm going to pick up the stitches for the neck, starting with the right front. Find the starting stitch. So I'm going to pick up 15 stitches up the right front, so that's 1, 2, 3, 'Can I get through that one? There's a bit of thread. That's 4. 5. 6. 7. Blow that up. 12. 13. 14. 15. That's 15 up the right front, and then I'm going to pick up 8 from the first sleeve. That's 1, 2, 7. That's last one is 8. And I'm going to pick up 22 from the back. And that's 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 from the back, 8 from the other sleeve, one, 2, 7, 8, and then another 15 down the left front. One, 2, 3, 4. Oh, let's split that one. It's 5, 6, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So that's all the stitches picked up, and all those stitches. That knit row makes a ridge to show where the neckline starts from. So that's all 68 stitches picked up, and one row knit row, so that you have a ridge on the right side. And then I'm going to knit 6 rows and knit 1 purl, 1 twisted rib. And now we are casting off these stitches in the same rib that we knitted in, knit 1 purl 1, and casting off loosely. Don't pull the stitch tight when you cast it off. As you can see, there's a little bit give in it, but not too much, because you don't want it baggy. And that is all you have to do. Just cast off loosely till you get to the end of the row. And I've cast off all the stitches. I just need to cut this yarn off now, and that's the neck done. I'll pull this out, just put the pieces together to see what the neck looks like. All these long ends I've got for sewn here. And there you can see how the neck will look when it's sewn up. It's just right. It's not too wide and not too small. Little bit of give in the. So now to sew this up. Got my pin cushion here. Needle. I like one with a big eye and easy to get the wool through. Then you just take the seam, just put 1 or 2 pins in to hold it together. Now 2 pieces of yarn here, so I'll tie one of them off. Cut one of them off because I only need one to sew with. And I always flat stitch these seams, and you flat stitch, you just hold the 2 pieces together like that. And you take a stitch from either side, and I'm going to over sew that piece that I cut off. And just keep going from side to side, 1 stitch from one side and 1 stitch from the other, and that is called flat stitching. And as you can see, it's just joins the sides neatly together. And that's how I'm going to join all 4 raglan seams. And that is how the seams look when they're being sewn up. Nice and neat. And now for to sew up the side and the sleeve seams. And I start with the cuff first. And I'll do the cuff exactly the same way as I did the raglan seams. Put a pin in. needle to thread. And I flat stitch the seams. You put the two pieces together like that. Take your stitch from one side, and then just flat stitch them down there. Until you get to the to where the pattern starts on the sleeve. So that's flat stitched down. Don't know whether you can see it on the other side, it's being a small thing. And that's it on the other side, how the seam is stitched. And now when we do the rest of the seam, you have to find the joins and put a pin where you have the two joins on the raglans, and then you put one or two pins in for the and you do a back stitch on the sleeve and the side seams, and the back stitch is just holding the two pieces together, and then where you've stitched there you go back behind that stitch and come out a little way in front of it, so you're going back into the behind the stitch and a little way into the front. Simple as that. Makes a nice neat seam on the other side. And that is how you backstitch the side seams, the sleeve seams. And you do that for all the seams. Flat stitch the cuffs and backstitch each part after the cuff. Simple as that. And I will be back when I come to do the bands on the front. Right, I've done the band, the button band. I picked up the stitches for the button band and knit that. And I picked up 93 stitches and I knit 6 rows. And then knit 1 purl, 1 twisted rib and cast off loosely. You don't want to cast off tight, but you don't want it too slack either, or else you'll get like a hump like that, you know, if you have it too slack. So, and now I'm going to do the other side, and I'm going to pick up 93 stitches on this side, and I have markers here. I place markers every 2 inches. It's 14 inches from the bottom of the band up to the top of the band, from the bottom of the rib on the bottom and the rib on the top. That's 14 inches. So I've placed markers 2 inches apart, and I'm going to pick up 93 stitches, but this bit down here, the bottom bit where the rib is, and the top bit where the rib is, I'm going to pick up 12 stitches between each of these markers. But this part here and that part up there is going to be more stitches, because you need more. Otherwise, if you don't have enough, it'll pull the rib like that. It'll gather the rib in, which you don't want. You want it to straight like that one there. So I've added an extra 6 stitches to the bottom. So instead of 12, I'm picking up 18 stitches. And the top, I'm adding 3 extra stitches here on the band. So instead of 12, I'm picking up 15 stitches. And the other's 12 in between each set of markers here. And I've had to start another ball. I have a small amount left, but I'm not sure whether it's enough to do the full band without having to add a little bit in the middle of it. So I thought I'd better start another ball. So I'll blow that up now. Right, so I'm starting the very bottom of the rib here. Sometimes it's hard to get the first. I'll split the wool there. That's it. That's my first stitch. I'm going into every space on the, usually when I'm picking up on the rib, I usually pick up three stitches and miss a stitch. No, 3 stitches and miss a stitch. But I'm not going to miss any on the rib, because I don't want it to gather the rib up. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, that's 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, that's 18 stitches up to the first marker. And take that marker out. And then I just count 12 each time. I don't go from 12 to 13, 14. I just say 12 when I'm counting there. The stitches will keep me right. So that's 1, 2, 3. Miss a stitch, go on to the next one. That's 4, 5, 6, miss a 1, 7, 8, 9, miss a 1, it's 10, 11, 12. And the one I'm missing is just before the marker, so there's a miss a 1 after 12 too. So miss a 1, a 1, 2, 3, miss the next one, 4, 5, 6, miss 1, 7, 8, 9, miss the next one, it's 10, 11, 12. Sometimes you might have a few more, an odd few more stitches in between the markers, but you just have to work that in. So I'll miss a few more on the next one to catch up on there. And that's how you pick the stitches up, and you have to knit one row. After you pick up all the stitches, I'll come back and show that after I get the stitches picked up. So that's all 93 stitches picked up, and now I'm going to knit the first row. And knitting that first row gives you that garter edge along there, which neatens up your, if you can see it on there, that's it on here. It neatens up the edge where you pick the stitches up. That's why I knit that first row. So I'm going to knit that row. And on the fourth row, I'll be making the buttonholes, and I'll come back when I get that far to show how to do that. So I have knit the one knit row and 3 rows of knit one purl one, and now I'm going to do the buttonholes, and I've placed spacers in the places where I'm going to do the buttonholes. And when I do the buttonholes, when I come to the stitch that the buttonhole, that the spacer is in, I will knit that stitch, be wool forward, and then knit 2 together. I'll show that. We'll start with a purl one, knit 1, purl 1, and now I'm knitting the stitch where the stitch holder is, knitting that one, wool forward, and I'm knitting the next 2 stitches. And I'll keep my finger on the wool to stop it going tight, so I get a good size buttonhole. As you see, there's a bit slack in the and I go on to the next buttonhole. Then I'm at the next stitch marker. I'm going to knit that stitch, yarn forward, and knit the next 2 stitches together. Keeping my finger on the wool to stop it going tight. And that's how we do the buttonholes. The next stitch marker, and I'm knitting that stitch, wool forward, the 2 stitches together, keep your finger on the wool to stop it tightening up, Oh, that's gone through too. I'll do that one again because I caught a bit of the two together. And a slack stitch in between. And that's how you do the buttonholes. And you have 7. I've got 7 spaces in. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm putting 7 buttonholes in. And then after that, I will knit another 2 rows and then cast off loosely, and that will be the cardigan finished apart from the buttons going on. Well, that's the finished cardigan. Buttons sewn on, all ready to be posted off. You can see a bit of the neck there and a bit of the ribs on the bottom. So the thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see more.